found some interesting things about Mike Shanahan that may reflect on his son. I have to say that it seems like Kyle and his dad are as close as me and my dad are. I'm extremely close with my dad. And while we have different views on certain things, if he has a strong opinion on something, I'm listening. And I'm not necessarily going to see it the same way, but I'm definitely going to hear him out because I respect him and he's my dad. And we do often have the same opinion. I have a feeling that Kyle and his dad are that way. Jim Harbaugh and his dad are that way. I can kind of, I feel like people who have strong relationships with their dads can see it in other people. And I see it in them. So anyway, tell us what you unearthed about Mike.
Yeah. So 2 things. One, I was listening to a Wickersham interview. He was on some podcast, and basically he was talking about the whole Spygate situation with the Patriots. And at that time, Goodell was reaching out to all the other coaches in the league, trying to get their opinion on things. And every coach to a T was basically saying, throw the book at this man. What a cheat. This is a joke. This is the worst thing we've ever seen in the league. He calls Mike Shanahan, and Shanahan goes, I'm just pissed I didn't figure it out earlier. Like, if I would have known that was a thing, I would have been doing that. Right. So I'm going, okay, well, this guy, as far as a competitive nature goes, is very similar to Bill Belichick, right?
And who does he admire? Bill Belichick.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So this was Mike Shanahan talking about, the whole situation. So then
Mike admires him as well.
Yeah,
I'm sure Mike looked at Bill Belichick as an equal. Because remember, Mike was the king of the world as a head coach in 1997, 1998. There was no one above him. Mike Holmgren, no. I mean, it was Mike Shanahan. And then who took his place? Bill Belichick in 2000, 2001. So I think Mike would look at him as a peer, as an equal.
Yeah, of course he would. He definitely respects him, right? So that's one, right? And then, and I think it was somebody from Niners Nation. So I would love to give credit. I forget who it was, but I think it came from Niners Nation. Somebody dug up an old Jake Plummer interview.
I think it was Kyle Posey.
Was it Posey? Okay. Yeah. KP. I think you're right. Yeah. Okay. So credit to him. He digs up a old interview of Jake Plummer talking about Mike Shanahan, and he's talking about how it didn't matter what he did. It was never enough for Shanahan. He would feel like he played really well, and Shanahan would want 4 or 5 more throws from him. Mike Shanahan would. And he talked about how
4 plays he didn't do right.
Right. Yeah. So
65. What about the other, 35, 40 plays that I did do well?
Right. Exactly. So he just talked about how it was never enough, no matter what everybody else thought. That was the vibe that he got from him. And he said, not only did it wear thin on him, but it wore thin on other players. So then let's parlay that into Kyle Shanahan, who, by the way, Wickersham, going back to him, had that report during the offseason about Jimmy Garoppolo's people feeling like he's mishandled Jimmy and been kind of a jerk about it. Right.
Right.
And so this is on brand with Kyle. Kyle is the same type of leader as his dad. And it's just not a good thing.
No. It's funny. The Raiders hired Mike Shanahan in 1987, I want to say, and I think they fired him in a year and a half. And Al Davis couldn't stand Mike Shanahan. There were things about him he couldn't stand. One of the things was that Al Davis was spending a lot of money on starters for stars. And Mike Shanahan was substituting 3 or 4 players every play, bringing on back. It's like, what am I doing paying for this? What am I doing? Al Davis couldn't freaking stand him. And I think Mike Shanahan he's very much into his system, proving that his system is more important than the players, that his system is king. And I think Kyle's the same way. And that's a problem because it's not. Football, the NFL is much more about what they say, the Jimmies and the Joes and the X's and the O's. It's true. And if you're one of these offensive guys with the type of ego who's I'm going to prove that I can win with lesser talent on offense. Honestly, that was Chip Kelly. He tried to do stuff like that. That's when you really get yourself into trouble. And I think Mike was that way. Kyle's that way. The difference between them is that Mike was blessed to work with John Elway and Steve Young, and Kyle's been more of a, mercenary guy who works with backups.
You know, the other thing that I really took from it when Wickersham was talking about that whole scenario is how much of a role Robert Kraft really plays in kind of covering for Belichick. He basically said that Belichick is the biggest a-hole on the face of the earth, right? He called him that essentially. And I'm talking about Robert Kraft called Belichick that. But he's a servant leader, right? And servant leadership is about getting the best from your people, putting their needs above yours in order to get the best out of them. That's what Kraft does. And so he's kind of that blanket because he's above Belichick, right? There's not really anybody above Shanahan. Like, yes, Jed York is the owner, but he's not any different, really. I mean, he's not a great owner by any means. It's not like people are running to him going, well, listen, like Kyle's kind of an a-hole. Nobody's doing that. I would guarantee it. So there's that buffer in New England, and that's why it's worked all of these years with Belichick. And also Belichick holds everybody accountable the same way, including himself. Shanahan doesn't do that. And I think those are the two differences between a Belichick and a Shanahan. And, you know, Mike also won Super Bowls, so he may have been a lot like Kyle, but he was winning. So it really didn't matter.